Check, check, check. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Toby Eunice with the Gypsy Kiss. Stick with us a couple of seconds, and we're going to have a nice conversation with the lady in the lower left-hand corner there, Miss Cynthia Meachum, about her recent travels to Montana. I am really getting to like that transition. I know it drives some of you crazy, but it's so neat. So welcome to our show tonight, our panel session. Our special guest is Cynthia Meachum. Cynthia has just returned from yet another. One of the first questions I'm going to ask her is how many trips now she's made to Montana, maybe how many days she spent there. But she's our special guest tonight. In addition to that, we're going to spend some time this afternoon. I had actually planned on talking about the riddle in Not Far But Too Far to Walk. And as you're probably mostly aware, a new article has come out, a new Fenn article has come out, written by Julianne Grimm, who's the editor of the Santa Fe Reporter. I've put a link to that article in the description box below. So if you haven't seen it, go and read it. I don't know necessarily that I found anything new or things that I haven't already heard in the article. But I decided rather than to talk about the riddle in Not Far But Too Far to Walk, we'll spend some time talking about hidden or buried, because that came up several times in the conversation, in Fenn's conversation with Julianne Grimm. Let's start by introducing my favorite partner and our producer tonight, Miss Shelley Carney. And Shelley, if you'll tell people where they can find you online, please.
All right. I'm Shelley Carney with the Gypsy's Kiss, and I also have my own channel at thesofterside.me. And every Thursday at about 2:30 in the afternoon, I'll be going live with a presentation, and Toby and I will be having a little coaching demonstration followed by live Q&A chat. So I hope that you'll join us there tomorrow, and that's thesofterside.me.
And it gives you an opportunity for Shelley to delve into the depths of this unusual mind and reveal a lot of my idiosyncrasies. So, and our newest panel member, Mr. Joel Lewicki, Esquire, out of Minnesota. Joel has been one of our moderators for a long time. He's a prize winner. And he always has been very good about supporting the conversation in the room. So we've asked him to join us as a panelist. So you will be seeing him more often on our panel session. Joel, introduce yourself and tell folks where they can find you online.
Absolutely. Thank you. And if I've ever deleted one of your comments, I'm not sorry, because you must have deserved it. And you're a better person for it.
Control the trolls, my brother. Control the trolls.
Yeah. So just briefly, I'm a searcher. I've been on the search for about a year. I live in northern Minnesota. You can find out more about me by checking out my YouTube channel, which is just Joel Lewicki. I know it's really original. Or you can check out, I do have a community that I've started on Facebook called The Thrill of the Chase, a Forrest Fenn community. And we're up to about 180 people in there now, which is awesome. And there's some pretty good interaction that happens there. So I'd invite you to go check that out on Facebook. And glad that you're here tonight and that we get a chance to interact with Cynthia.
That's nice. And Cynthia, before we get onto our Q&A, I wanted you to introduce yourself, please, and tell folks where they can find you online.
My name is Cynthia Meachum, and my website is called chasingfennstreasure.com, all one word, no apostrophe.
And I noticed you've been adding quite a bit of content to it recently as a result of your travels.
I have tried to put a few articles on there regarding some of the places I searched, and just trying to get some of the pictures on there of the different areas that I visited this last trip.
And by the way, for those of you who haven't visited Cynthia's blog, I strongly recommend that you go by and visit, and also take note of her photographic skills. She's quite the photographer and has taken photographs literally on every recon and scouting trip that she's been on, and reserves the best, I think, for her blog, although I've never seen a bad photograph as taken by Cynthia. So, all right, so there's a couple of things I want to talk about, but before we talk about your most recent trip to Montana, yesterday we had the opportunity to have Connie Wilmoth, am I pronouncing that correctly? Yeah. On, and she talked about Fenbury and how it had to change because of the forest fires here in New Mexico, and she brought us up to speed on what's happening. But I know at the same time, Cynthia, you're holding an event up north that I think you referred to as Function is in the Junction. So before we get started with our Q&A, why don't you tell everyone about the Function in the Junction?
So this just originated from me when I pretty much knew the dates I was going to go up there in June. I actually had to coordinate that with Dan, the guy writing the book, because that was the only time he could go. I know a lot of people search the West Yellowstone area, so I thought, well, it'd be really cool if anybody wanted to get together, and just have drinks or dinner and then talk about their days searching or whatever. So I put it out there, and the people who originally appeared interested in this, I have not heard from them. However, I've heard, I think right now there are about 15 people who have either mentioned it on Dale's blog or some of the other blogs, or emailed me that they are interested in attending. It will be held at the Buffalo Bar, which is a restaurant bar casino on Highway 20. It's like the main drag going into West Yellowstone. And it will be Saturday, the 23rd of June, starting at 7:00. When I was there a couple weeks ago, I actually asked them if they could handle a group of anywhere from like 15 to 25 people. And they said they would put a few tables together for us out on the patio. And the reason I moved it, I wanted a place where there was a roof, because when I was up there a couple weeks ago, it rained almost every evening. So we were talking Baker's Hole at just someone's campsite. But then I thought, no, one thing, parking might be a problem at a campsite. Mm-hmm. And this place has a lot of parking, and the fact that I really do think we should have a roof. And there's good booze. I can attest to this. Good booze. I think I ate food there once. So the food that we had was good. And I think it'll be a great place to hold the event.
So the evening of Saturday, the 23rd of June, which is weekend after next.
Right, at 7.
At 7 p.m. And again, the name of the name of the facility?
The Buffalo Bar.
The Buffalo Bar on the main drag in West Yellowstone. So yes. You just kind of scooted by something right there, but I want to come back to it. Dan, the guy that's writing the book, what's that about?
So there's actually an actual book writer who has been published by Simon & Schuster, I think. Or his original book, he wrote about the daily fantasy football sports and the players, the people that actually did it and were good at it. So he came up with the idea of doing a book on the searchers that are searching for Fenn's treasure. And he actually attended Fenbury last year, and he interviewed quite a few people that were at that Fenbury. Well, and I actually got to do a search with him last October, I think it was, in New Mexico. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I think he's looking to gather more data or stories. So anybody that's interested in talking to him, I believe he plans to attend on Saturday. As far as I know, I have not heard that he's not going to go. So he will be there, and anybody that wants to talk to him can. And if you don't want to, I mean, he would respect that as well. So I read his book on the fantasy football, and it was very, very good, very well written. And I hope that he would do us the same justice and tell our story honestly, and find out.
How much time did you spend with him in conversation?
Well, I've talked to him numerous times, but the first time at Fenbury, you know what? I don't remember. I have talked to him. I'm sort of his go-between between my him and some other searchers, or just getting him hooked up with other searchers. Mm-hmm. through emails, phone numbers, or whatever. So I guess the best thing I got to do with him was actually go on one of his searches that he wanted to do, sort of up in the like between Cuesta Red River last fall. It was actually his search. I just went with him, so it was fun, and he understands now what it's like looking for a needle in 4 states of haystacks.
Haystacks,
so,
yeah.
Anyway,
First experience. See. But this, I want to be clear. This is not Ralph. This is not.
That is correct.
All
this
right.
is not Ralph.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get on to talking about your trips, but I want to put some context around it. So let's start with how many trips have you made to that area now, and how many total days have you been up there? And then we can get on to more questioning after that. So I just need some context because I don't know how much time you've spent up there.
So this was my 3rd trip. The first trip was last fall when Dale and I were there together and we did the thing for ABC. So that was a very short trip. I think I was there a total of 3 or 4 days. And it snowed. The weather was bad. So then I went again in April, the first week of April, I believe it was, when I did my recon trip of the Madison River. And there again, I really got to see a lot of roads that I drove on and quite a bit of the Madison, but really did not do any kind of a search. So this was actually the 10 days I was just there was the first time that I actually went to do legitimate searches, and both inside Yellowstone National Park boundaries and outside the park boundaries.
And how many days has been total so far?
Probably about 12 total.
Okay. All right. Joel, over to you.
So we were going to try to meet up when I was out there over Memorial Day weekend, and that didn't work out. So I'm glad that we get a chance to interact like this tonight, and I can ask you some of those questions that I was going to ask you then. So first of all, exactly where do you think the treasure is in Montana now that you've been up there?
Oh, no, not Montana, Wyoming. I've changed.
Oh.
No, actually, no. So anybody that's probably searched Yellowstone understands that a very small portion of Yellowstone National Park is in Montana, but the biggest chunk of it is in Wyoming. So I'll tell you most of the areas I went, and this is a spoiler alert. For those who don't know me or don't read my blog, I did not find Fenn's treasure.
Ugh, dang
but back to the states and where it could be. So inside the park, one of the places I really liked was Barnes Hole, which is along the Madison. If you go through the west entrance, it will be almost an immediate to your left if you're coming into the park, and you drive out there like a mile, and then you get to the Madison. That there are some old search stories on one of the blogs from like back in 2012 that was really good for that area, and I just wanted to see it and check that out. So there again, but that's in Montana. Well, then you continue into the park from where that road split off, and it's not long until you're actually in Wyoming. So I will say that most of my real searches this trip were actually in the Wyoming section of Yellowstone.
Very nice.
So maybe I misunderstood, but I thought that you weren't going to look specifically in the park, but it sounds like you are looking inside the park.
I did not anticipate what happened to me. I had searches outside the park, but I went into the park immediately after I checked in and set up, and I was so enamored with the park that I just couldn't stay out. So except for Memorial Day Monday, I think it was, the weekend was pretty packed, pretty busy inside the park. And I thought I'd take one day out of the park. So Memorial Day Monday, I actually did not go into the park and search. I did some driving around to some other areas I was interested in near the West Yellowstone, Gallatin, down the canyon area. But I just wanted to get more familiar, because now I could get back to Forest Service roads, which I could not do in April. So I just wanted to get back there, look at different trailheads, and get a sense for, Toby, as you and Shelley often call it, what's the word you use?
Fenny.
Fenny,
funny
how
it is.
funny it is. I totally agree that that's a good thing to do. So that was part of what I did on the day I did not go into Yellowstone.
All right. Shelley, over to you. I'll be back to you in a bit, Joel.
I have a question from Mary Green for Cynthia. Are you becoming discouraged in your solves? Now, now that you have exhausted New Mexico and moved on to other states? Are you becoming discouraged?
Oh, absolutely not. So one of the best things I have done is I totally gave up New Mexico. Well, I'm not because I gave up New Mexico, because I gave up an area I was searching for 5 years and I couldn't find it. When I decided to finally do that, it was so refreshing to actually start over at a new state, a new place, new maps, and to know I was going to get to go to places I had never been before. And anybody who has not been to Yellowstone National Park, I should be their friggin' ambassador. I loved it. I mean, I just fell in love with it so much that I got to the point where I preferred to. I had locations I wanted to go to, as I wrote on the blog. I wanted to follow Fenn's footsteps, some of the places we know for sure he went, to make it at least a viable spot because we know he went. One of those was Fishing Bridge. I ended up stumbling upon the Indian Pond, and I just fell in love with that for our Warm Waters Halt, even though my brain told me right from the start it wasn't there, but I couldn't help it. So I spent like a day and a half there. And then the other place that was on my agenda from the very beginning was Slough Creek. If you on Dale's blog, he has a bunch of videos that he did with Fenn. I think it was in the spring of 2016 or 17, where he actually interviewed Forrest in his home. And one of those is like a 3-minute video where Forrest talks about he and his father in Concy Woods fishing at Slough Creek. So that meant for sure he went there. So that was one of the areas I was really interested in. And when I Googled Slough Creek Forrest Fenn, there are so many people who have published their solves that either searched near the creek or that was one of the solves of the 9 clues. Mm-hmm. And then that's also the area where the people from, I think, Washington State had to be rescued due to high water. And that actually was quite comical. I mean, it's just hard to believe what some of the people do, the predicaments they get themselves into. But anyway, and then there was also a really cute story about a bear that used to be near the Slough Creek campground that used to just jump on top of the tents to cave them in, and they nicknamed him Pouncy. But I don't remember what year that was, so I don't think that was real current. But I am not the first person to ever think of Slough Creek. That's the point I'm trying to make. Very popular search.
Not such a cute
spot.
Story for the campers that were in those tents.
Oh no, the bear did it during the day when no one was around. Oh. They were out. According to the article, no one was in the tents, but that would have been cool to have seen.
So I have a question for you, but before I ask that question, so it strikes me that if anyone is going to Yellowstone, they should probably spend the first 2 to 3 days just exploring all the already explored solutions that are posted on the various blogs, because there has to be, I'm going to guess, probably 10 or 12 consistently explored areas in Yellowstone that are published on the various blogs. You should probably just go look at them just to say you did. So let me go on. I want to talk about some more practical matters. What are you doing in terms? I know you're driving up there. You're not flying, so you're taking your vehicle with you. What are you doing in terms of lodging while you're there?
I'm towing my camper, so I actually stay at the KOA Westgate campground. Mm-hmm. I think it's like 6 miles outside of West Yellowstone. If you don't already have your reservations for the summer, they're booked. I tried to extend my visit coming up by 1 day, and he said, absolutely not, no way. And I have a small camper. Mm-hmm. So that one's probably full. As far as, I think Baker's Hole is a national forest campground. That is first come, first served. Mm-hmm. I will not do that because I don't want to drive 14 hours and not be able to get a spot. That's why I like reservations. But other people say that if you get there, early morning, you can get a spot. And then I think inside the park by now, that's probably also filled up.
For the summer. When are you going back up, and how long will you be there the next time?
I leave on Sunday, so I arrive Monday, and then I will come home either Sunday or Monday. So I will be there to search basically 6 days this soon. Sunday.
And I'll see if I can get a commitment from you tonight that when you come back after this last trip, we have another conversation with you. Okay.
Okay.
Joel, over to you.
We'll do it.
Great. So Cynthia, I've been wondering this, and it seems like the sort of thing that maybe you've kept track of. How many times have you personally, this is a two-part question, okay? How many times have you personally met or interacted with Forrest?
A lot. I don't know.
So then the second follow-up part to that is, were there places that you've seen so far since changing your search area north that you would describe as Fenny? And in your mind, do you have a good way of articulating what would be Fenny, or is it just when you get to the spot, you look around and, go with your gut?
I guess I go with my gut. So there were some things that really, I think I resolved in my mind about some of the things that Fenn has said publicly in the past. And one of the things that he has said is, I have some notes here. The chest is not in a dangerous place you can take your kids. I don't think I actually ever understood that until I searched Indian Pond, such an easy short trip from where you park. And when I got back there to leave the human trail and go into the woods, there was a family with kids playing at the edge of Yellowstone Lake. Now, what I really liked about this was it really met the criteria about it being a family-friendly spot, but they never saw me, and I just dropped right into the woods at my little creek there. They never saw me. I'm in the woods, and it's not like the woods are like super, super thick with trees, but for a lot of trees. And I just liked it because it was so easy, but yet there is absolutely no reason for anyone to leave that trail and to go into the woods between the pond and Yellowstone Lake. Well, unless you had to pee or something, maybe. But that I really liked, and that I think that was the first time I really understood what kind of place it could be. And I'm sure it's not there, but I think I finally had an understanding of Fenn saying it's not in a dangerous place you could take your kids.
Very nice. Very nice. Shelley, any other questions from the room?
No, there's a lot of talk about your haircut, though.
Mine?
No.
I watched it.
Toby's haircut.
Oh, Toby's.
They
I was
say
going to
it's
say.
Dapper.
So I saw one comment about it. What I want you to know is this is straight from he did this, or the barber did this, blew dry it and gooeyed it up. So it'll come back down where it's supposed to by tomorrow. But thanks for noticing.
It doesn't help you have the fancy captain's shirt on in black.
Yeah. Okay. So remember, guys, for those of you in the chat, part of this is we'd like you, if you have any questions about Cynthia's travels, especially the most recent travels up to Yellowstone and what she's experiencing. And she's always been very helpful with not only what she's doing in terms of the search, but some of the more practical things like where she's staying and how she's reducing or keeping her expenses to a reasonable amount, because I know that area is that particular area is extremely expensive, especially during the summer. So I want to talk to you a little bit, Cynthia, about how you are keeping your expenses down. But Shelley has a question from the room. So go ahead, Shelley, over to you.
Cindy Guess and I both want to know about your bear encounters.
Oh, my bear encounters were all good because I was in my car when I saw them. And then, of course, we'd get out and get as close as the rangers would allow. So what's really interesting is if it's a black bear, the rangers will allow people to get actually quite much closer than I thought they would. But if it's a grizzly bear, you definitely have to stay back a certain distance or stay in your car. And they really do try to control the traffic flow. Otherwise, it just becomes a parking lot. The drivers just stop in the middle of the road. But what I do want to talk about, there was a guy that actually knocked on my door one morning later in the week, who, I don't know how he found me, but apparently the office told them what site I was in. But he knocked on the door and he introduced himself. He was searching outside the park boundaries, I think somewhere like north of West Yellowstone, but not too far. So like the Gallatin National Forest. And he was telling me that the day before, he was only about a half a mile from where he had parked, and he encountered a grizzly bear that was coming across the hill towards him. Now, I don't think he knew if it was actually coming at him or if it was just headed to the creek for water where he was. But he carries a cowbell, and I don't mean those little tiny bear bells that are, I think, worthless. But and he rang the cowbell, and the bear, it didn't deter the bear at all. It kept coming. So the guy was actually carrying a 10 millimeter firearm, and he actually shot it into the air, and that noise then made the bear pick a different path. It scared. His name is Chris, and he actually wrote the story on one of the blogs. It scared Chris so bad, he was looking for someone that would go with him the next day. I think he wanted me for bait, maybe. I'm not sure after I got thinking about it. But he was very sincere, and he wanted me to go with him the next day so he could go to the very last spot, his Clue 9, and he did not want to go alone anymore. And he had a firearm, and I carried a firearm some of the days as well. So that is just one thing that I did want to bring up, that you really have to be aware. Well, I guess you have to be aware of everything. Since I've been home, there were like 1 or 2 elk that were protecting their calves that butted people that got too close, and bison. Bison have also, I believe, gored a lady who the other people in the crowd got too close, and unfortunately the bison got the wrong person. But there again, very, very be aware of the wildlife and the bison. This is crazy. What happens is, I think there's so many bison around wherever you are hiking out of your car, and they seem to be very tolerant of the people most of the time. One of the scary things, I was hiking on a trail that actually was going to go through a copse of trees, and there was a group of about 6 hikers coming towards me who had seen the bison on the trail in the woods. And they warned me, because the bison, I think there were 2 of them, they were actually right on the trail. And it's not like it's wide there, it's trees and this narrow trail. So thank goodness they told me about it. Otherwise, I would have been just, traipsing along on the trail, and all of a sudden I would have been face to face with one of the bull bison. So because they told me, I actually went around the trees through a marsh, but I thought wet feet were a lot better than being gored. So that is another thing. And I think the tendency, once you're around so many of the bison, the tendency is you get a little bit lackadaisical about them, and you might think about getting closer than you should. So anyway, that's my safety announcement for the night. Just be aware of the bison as well as the bears.
So quick yes, no, before I go over to Shelley. Are you carrying bear spray in addition to the sidearm, or sidearm only?
No, I have bear spray as well. And there was one time when actually it was on the same hike. I got to a different area, and there were some trees ahead, and I saw movement, but I couldn't tell if it was dark. Like a black bear is very, very black. You'll know. But the grizzly I saw was a lighter brown, and this big thing that moved, I couldn't even tell if it was a bison. So I actually got the bear spray in my hand, took the clip off of it, and sort of made my way slowly to where I actually could see it. And then finally the bison raised its head. So I knew it was a bison. But yeah.
Well, as Dr. Smith said in our conversation last week's panel, the idea of going out with one of the safety recommendations he's made is go out in a group. The bigger the group, the better. Right. And I do want to point out that Chris, and Chris, forgive me for not remembering your last name, he actually sent me a letter, an email regarding those 2 experiences that he had, and I posted them to our blog at gypsyskiss.com. His email. He also sent us some images of a bear paw in the mud and some bear scat. So I might recommend you go look at that. It was an interesting, and he describes the same situation where he uses the cowbell. So who is that you have with you there, Joel?
So this is my most recent search partner. This is my son, Benjamin. He's 9. Can you say hi?
Hi.
Hey, Benjamin, how are you doing?
So he was out with us when we were searching over Memorial Day. It was my father, myself, and my son, my oldest son, Benjamin. So it was a family affair. And we had a couple of experiences like very similar to what Cynthia just described. In fact, at one point, we found ourselves in the middle of a bison herd in the middle of the woods. And we did get charged a little bit by one of them who was trying to push one of its calves back away from where we were. We had to back away from that and then try to go around and give it a wide berth. And then on the way back to the car, we finished the hike with bear spray in hand because we saw bear tracks on top of our tracks from earlier in the day.
Very nice.
So it is good to be prepared and to be well equipped with the safety equipment that you need to be out. And, just by way of reminder, whether it's water, we drank so much more water than we expected to. We had brought so much. I thought that we brought way too much water. We were totally out of water by the time we got back to the car. So
is this also the young man of the fishing picture with that real funny looking not trout that you sent me?
Yes, that was a picture of Benjamin holding up a northern pike.
Yeah,
that's right.
I was going like, I don't know what those are, but it doesn't look like a trout to me.
Well, come up here and we'll help you catch some.
All right, I'd love to. Are they good eating, just out of curiosity?
If you can get all the bones out.
Yeah, that's how trout are. Don't feel bad. Shelley, do you have a question?
Well, first I have a super chat.
Yay.
From our friend John Bobbitt, who is back after his surgery last week.
Oh, did he tell us about is he feeling better after the surgery now? I'll let him tell his story. John, just tell us about what happened.
Feet. He said he had ulcers on his feet that were bothering him during the last recon. That's what he had taken care of. And then I have a question from Odious Soul, Shannon.
Hi, Shannon.
Or Cynthia. I can talk. Cynthia, how many clues do you think you've identified on your search so far?
0.
You sound like that. Sounds like one of our trips. Like we think we have something and then we get there and we don't. So any more questions for the room before I move back to Joel? I want to make sure we get the room questions answered.
No, they were just sharing about being stuck in a bison jam.
Oh, like a traffic jam, but with bison?
Mm-hmm.
There was one that was about 12 miles long when we were there.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my goodness.
I guess sooner or later I'm going to have to, I've mentioned in the past, I went there as a child and have literally no memory of it. I guess I'm going to have to go back sooner or later just to visit, if not looking for the treasure, because I don't think the treasure's there. But, Joel, your question.
So, Cynthia, back to something that you said earlier that does interest me because of some of the stuff that I've put out there recently, and that was the Barnes Hole area. And you mentioned some of the previous solves that were on the internet from maybe back in 2012. I'm guessing one of those might be a real trout mount. Does that sound familiar? But I have searched in the Barnes Hole area, and I'm curious specifically if that area feels fenny to you.
Not actually, it's not fenny in the sense that I usually would look for. It seems like it's just the Madison River, which is pretty wide there, nice flowing, but nothing crazy. And it's the one side of it's all forest. And then the other side is cleaner, as I recall. So, but it doesn't seem like it's in the mountains to me. So my biggest problem with that area is when Fenn actually says that he hid the treasure in the mountains, does that include the flat areas like that or not? And this originally came up when I was doing my recon of the Madison River, and one of the guys who lives up in that area and fly fishes and really knows it all, he made such a good point that regarding the Madison, once you get below Quake Lake, I think it is, and you get down to the pass, the local people, they refer to that as the flats, and it's more of the plateau and the meadows and all that. So I really agreed with this guy after reading what he had to say, that's Fenn does not consider that the mountains. So with that being said, does that mean that the Madison, like downstream from Baker's Hole, is that still in the mountains? We all know that's where Fenn, his secret fishing hole was there. And he spent a lot of time, I think, in that stretch of the Madison when he was young. But there again, that's very similar to Barnes Hole as well. It's just a flat area where the Madison's running down through there with a lot of pine trees on one side, and then the other side, less trees. So I don't think it's Fenny, but because I know Forrest actually spent a lot of time there through the years, I have to probably go look. Do you agree, Joel, or am I wasting my time?
Well, any time out looking for it, I don't think is wasted. That's been my experience, and I'm sure it's been yours too, is that even the most unsuspecting places turn out to be these places of just immense treasure once you get out there amongst the trees, the animals. So you mentioned you were there in Yellowstone over Memorial Day weekend. We were there the same weekend, and it's the busiest weekend of the year for that park, a park that sees over 4 million people a year driving through. We were there all day Saturday hiking, and we saw maybe 4 or 5 other people the whole time.
And where were you?
We were in that kind of Baker's Hole,
Hole area. Right. Yes. Good.
On the other side of the river.
So what's your conclusion? What's your conclusion about that, Joel?
What specifically?
Is it there?
It's the busiest. The pressure. It sounds like there's no pressure over the busiest holiday of the weekend.
That's the craziest thing, is that and why she was asking me what I thought about that particular area. It's a place you can go, and you would think I'm going to be surrounded by people, and you actually aren't surrounded by people, because like Forrest describes that place, it is the quietly forgotten western edge of Yellowstone National Park. You would not, it's like less than a quarter of a mile when you enter the park on the left. It's an unmarked road to get to Barnes Hole. It's an interesting place. It's very unique. Absolutely. So we hiked around, and Benjamin found some of the ruins of the old barns that area is named for, and that was kind of fun. Oh,
Barnes Hole is named after physical structures as opposed to an individual?
Yeah, there were horse barns that were there that have since been removed, and the only thing that's there is now the ruins. This is my daughter Violet. She's 7. Can you wave to everybody?
Hey Violet, welcome aboard. Are you also a treasure hunter?
Yeah, she's been out once looking too. We got another one here. This is Silas. There's if we stay on the air long enough, the screen
will introduce the entire family.
Full of children.
Exactly. I don't have a big enough screen. So.
Right. So we got the back of Silas's head right now.
I don't want to. Yeah, Silas, and Penelope's here somewhere too. But...
Penelope.
Yeah.
My goodness, how many do you have?
Yep.
You got 4 altogether?
4?
Yes, 4.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Prolific, those Lewickies, I hear.
Well, I need more search partners.
Okay, so let me go back to my questioning for Cynthia. So I was going to ask you about the bears, but that came out of the room. The question I have for you is if, and I know you're going back up there for a week, so this is a purely hypothetical question. If you only had one day to spend up there in that area, where would you spend that day looking for the treasure?
Well, I probably wouldn't look for the treasure. I'd be somewhere inside Yellowstone National Park.
Just admiring it?
You bet. I now have my favorite spots that I just love, and it probably has nothing to do with Fenn's treasure being there. So you asked me about some of the other things about being Fenny or whatever.
Yes.
So the Firehole River and Ojo Caliente, which Fenn wrote about it, it was river bathing is best, I think was in Too Far to Walk, and it's on his website. Ojo Caliente is gorgeous, and I have a picture of it on my website from when I was just up there. There's a bridge right there, so you actually can cross the Firehole River and be on and hike whichever side of it you want to. There again, it's not exactly my idea of where Fenn would have hit it. It just, for one thing, it's so popular, a lot of people go, and I'm not sure if you can get far enough away from the people without exceeding the distance that I think Fenn actually walked from his car. But it's a spot that I just love. It's beautiful. And if the morning's cool, all that steam rising off the river and all the geysers and whatever, I just love it. And I don't think that that's an area where there's a lot of bear activity, although there's still the bison that you do have to be aware of. But that's one of my favorite spots to just go take pictures.
Shelley, did you have a question from the chat? A question or two from the chat room? I noticed that you've been writing them down. So let's let's go through all those questions in the chat room before I go back to Joel.
Okay, I'm going to start with Lisa Smith, and she has a question for Cynthia. Does any part of your search start outside Yellowstone National Park and enter into it?
No, I do have solves that are outside of Yellowstone National Park boundaries, but I believe that most of the clues are close together.
Okay. The next one is from David Kramer. Cynthia, when hiking in Yellowstone and looking for the clues or treasure, what are you looking for exactly?
Well, it really depends on where I am at or where I plan to go. So there again, the Indian Pond, I stumbled upon that when I was leaving Fishing Bridge, and I wrote the story on my blog article. I a long time ago read where someone said that the line in the poem, "So why is it that I must go?" You can translate that to the geographic feature called an isthmus. And when I was stopped for road construction, and I'm sitting there and I looked out each side of my window and there's water on both sides, and it's like, holy crap, this is it. And it was Pelican Creek. I got to an area where I could actually hike Pelican Trail, and this was all impromptu. I had not planned any of this. Pulled off. The road was closed there for they were cutting down trees or something. They wouldn't allow me back there. And then I saw this other little parking area on the other side of the road with just a few cars. I walked over to see what it was. And it was actually this beautiful pond with a few woods between it and Yellowstone Lake. And I thought, I'll go read the plaque. And after I read that plaque, it's like, holy cow, this has to be where warm waters halt. And one of the reasons was, Fenn said a number of years ago something about many people have found the first clue but didn't know it. This was the first time I've ever been to any kind of a feature, or whether you think it's Madison Junction or a hot spring, whatever. I never could understand how could a searcher be at their warm waters halt and not understand, or maybe it's not the halt. Maybe that's what we're getting wrong, is the halt part. But if you're standing at what you think are your warm waters, how could you not understand that you're at the first clue, unless the halt takes you to a slightly different spot? But anyway, this plaque, I read it, and it was the first thing where I ever thought, oh my God, it actually describes what warm waters halt could be. But it's so unique that this could be a reason that people were there and didn't understand what it meant.
Interesting.
But back to the question, I think the question had to do with what do I look for or whatever when I'm going to my spot. Usually I at least have an idea of what the first clue is going to be, and then I wing it.
Don't we all?
And actually, this trip, I didn't eat. My clues were the solutions to my clues were so horrible on this trip that it was almost embarrassing to even write the blog articles. But it's not just me, because like discussing Slough Creek, oh my God, I didn't realize how many people had searched Slough Creek until I Googled it. And almost all those stories that I read, none of them were on the blog, I don't think. Maybe there were some. But there's a lot of people that are writing articles or whatever over the years that are on, I can't remember all the websites, but it wasn't Dale's blog, and it wasn't like Chase Chat. And I think some of them were like back from 2012, 2013.
So where do if our first clue, as Fenn suggests, is begetted where warm waters halt, where does everybody start in Slough Creek? Where are the warm waters?
That was a thing that I did not have. So my goal was a lot of this trip actually turned into more of a reconnaissance trip for some of the stuff. And because I knew Fenn had fished at Slough Creek with his dad, I wanted to go see it, and it is Fenny. Oh my God, it was so Fenny, except I didn't have a friggin' solution to any of the clues. Except, well, there is the paddle up your creek was actually Buffalo Creek. And I actually wanted to walk along Buffalo Creek. I think it's called Buffalo Fork Trail. What I didn't understand was that there is not really a bridge crossing Slough to get to it. I was pretty sure I had seen a picture online of a bridge. When I got to the trailhead, walked down the path, got to Slough Creek, and you had to wade. And the water was so high right now that it definitely was not wadeable. I mean, it would have knocked you on your butt right away. So I was smart, and that sort of changed my plans for the day. And then that's when I went crazy with some of my off the wall ideas and the number in the book. But I had a great time.
Oh, good. So Sledneck, I saw your comment, and if I do head up there sometime this year, probably if I go, it'll probably be the September timeframe. I will let you know in advance so you can give me the tour, because I'm thinking I'm going to have to get up there just for that. All right. Shelley, any more questions from the room?
Several more, yes.
Okay, let's go ahead with those.
This one is for everybody, I think, but because there's no designation, and it could vary in answers. Louis Luya wants to know, what is the difference between a recon and a scouting trip, and how is it different from an actual search where you're following your solve?
Joel, do you want to go first, or do you have an opinion on the matter?
I armchaired it to the point where I had a place specifically I wanted to look before each time I went out. So I haven't been on, I think, what people would typically term a recon trip. I've been on, in my own mind, recovery trips to try to recover the treasure. Right. They've turned into recons so that I feel better about it and have gotten a feel for the lay of the land after actually being there. Crocs on the ground, which is my own coined term, because I walk around in Crocs instead of boots a lot of the time, and because they're super comfortable. Let's be honest, right?
I can understand that. Yeah,
not great for traction, but I'm not going into dangerous places anyways. But that's my thing. I think a recon is you can look at maps, you can look at pictures, you can read other people's accounts, but until you get there yourself, you don't have a feel for what it's going to be like.
Right.
And that's what I envision for a recon.
Cynthia?
I have to do it the other way. I use Google Earth a lot. So I do try to solve, at least have a decent starting point, with a warm water and a canyon. And Homer Brown, it's who knows what that's going to end up being. But I do try to have at least the first two clues. I use Google Earth to look at it, but I'll tell you what, until I actually go see it, I just can't get a grasp for it in my mind. And when I searched New Mexico, of course, it was so much easier for me to do a recon trip then. But like Toby, like you and Shelley had said about it being Fenny, I have had decent searches already in New Mexico where I went to it almost always involved a creek or a stream. I got there and got to the trailhead, and it was like horrible. It's like, oh my God, I just can't imagine that Fenn would have spent any time here at all and never went back. So I can't tell. A lot of times I can't tell the change in elevation, how steep it's going to be until I actually go there. And one other word of advice, a little bit, for anybody that does use Google Earth. One of the things that I found this time when Jesse and I did the first 2 days when we did our search, and this was actually a valid search. We actually did have a warm water canyon, lots of stuff. There was so much deadfall along the stream that we were walking. It was hard the second day. I was tired. It got harder for me. But the thing is, we discussed whether or not that would have been down back in 2009, 2010. And we don't think that it would have been like that back then. So knowing that now, the best thing would be look at Google Earth and bring up a map bring up Google Earth from like 208, 209, 2010 and see what the deadfall really looked like back when Fenn hid the treasure.
Right, as opposed to what it looks like now.
Yes.
So, Louis, I'm going to give you our opinion on the matter. We have a scouting trip, a recon trip, and a recovery trip. A scouting trip is kind of what Cynthia suggested there. We look at Google Earth, we look especially at the topographic maps, and we go out and we validate kind of the terrain. Right. So we're just looking at it and seeing if there's any kind of possibility that this is rational. And rational is, could an 80-year-old man have navigated this terrain without putting himself at risk? A recon is, we have a sense that there are at least the first two clues, and we'd like to navigate our way to what we believe could be the next clue, and that's so we can go a recon at a time. Sometimes the recon can get us to the next clue, sometimes it gets us to two clues. And then a recovery trip is after several recons where we validated each of the clues in step, and this time we're going to look in that niche where the treasure is hidden with a flashlight and bring it back out, asking Kevin to carry it in his backpack because he's the heavy set guy. He's the big guy in the thing. So I hope that answers your question. Shelley, you said you had a couple more?
I do. This one is from Wager Whip, and I think Cynthia may have already answered it, but in case you have anything to add, Cynthia, do you feel it's better to figure clues out as you go and cover more ground?
Well, I think the best thing is to have the right 9 clues from the get-go and just walk to the treasure chest. But I guess my idea of what I did the last trip I went up there, Fenn has said that more than one searcher, many searchers have been within 500 feet of the chest, like they got the first clue and were within 500 feet of it, not knowing. And then there were just, I guess, a few searchers who had figured out the first 2 clues, didn't really know it, and had walked by it and were within 200 feet of it. From doing this for, now I sound really arrogant, but because I have been doing this for 5.5 years, and I have seen so much of New Mexico, and now I'm finally getting to see a little bit of Montana and Wyoming, I would like to think that if I actually could luck out and hit that first clue, that I would be savvy enough to really look around at my surroundings and at any of the geographic formations or whatever, and then maybe figure it out. And so I think that's why I am prone to go even great distances all the way to Yellowstone with only the first 2 clues and nothing more. But then Fenn says, until you find the treasure, you don't even know if you have the first one correct. So I'm not sure what the right answer is to your question. Whatever helps you find the chest is the right answer.
Joel, what do you think?
I forgot the question because I was listening to Cynthia.
Oh, so. No. She's got a good one. Well, let me go back to something that Cynthia said earlier, because it sounds like we may be in agreement on this matter. I think I heard you say that your search area is relatively small, not your actual search area, but you're not thinking in terms of tens of miles.
The distance between the clues.
Yeah, the distance between the first and last clues. Our opinion is you should be able to see the next clue from the last clue, right? Or at least have a sense. I just wanted to make sure you're on that track too. So that makes for a relatively small search radius. Is that correct?
I agree. Yes, to me. If you read my some of the stories I write, you sure wouldn't get that from what I write. But I start off thinking that everything is going to be fairly close together. So if you think logically about this, and I've argued this with many people, he said that people had, found the first clue, didn't understand the significance of it, and were within 500 feet of the treasure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then he said that there were a few people that figured out the first 2 clues, also left the poem or didn't understand where they were, and they were within 200
feet. Yeah, we did a blog.
How can that not be 300 feet between clue 1 and clue 3 then?
Our point exactly. We actually did a vlog on that several months ago.
I don't know. But you know what? With Fenn, who the heck knows?
Right.
I mean.
Well, we're going to talk about that in just a second. Shelley, any more questions from the room? I want to make sure they get answered.
Yes. Let's see. Holly Purd wants to know, Cynthia, did you search Harlequin Lake or do you have any thoughts about it?
I had that on my list, but I ended up doing things that I had not planned. So I did not search it the last trip, but I'm going again Monday
And
somewhere.
James,
Somewhere.
Lori James wants to know if you've been to Fairy Falls.
Yes.
All those places. So you've been to all the good places.
And Cherry has a question for Cynthia. When you were in New Mexico, using that as your solution, what were you using for where warm waters halt? Were you using the Department of Game and Fish? And what where warm waters halt are you using now?
When I searched in New Mexico, I used everything for warm waters that I could possibly think of. And before Fenn came out with one of the quotes about there being many places in the Rocky Mountains where warm waters halt, before that, I even actually used the Vietnam War Memorial in Angel
Angel
Fire.
Fire.
And I used the warm waters as a metaphor for tears. I am not the only person to have come up with this.
Right.
Many people did that. So, but after he came out with about there are many places in the Rockies where warm waters halt or whatever he said, then I pretty much exclusively changed to some kind of a geothermal feature. However, I believe Toby, you and Shelley believe or used to believe that it had to do with the trout waters. I also used that early on the first several years when I searched in New Mexico. I used that as well. So, and then I've used just where two rivers come together. I mean, you name it. I think I've used it wrongly.
As we all have. All right, so let me come out of the chat room for just a little while. I want to make sure we get responses to this last question before we depart. I also want to give either Shannon or Sean Dotson an opportunity to mention that they're doing an after party show after this event. And maybe Shannon, you could put the channel that it's going to take place on, because I know you're attending that, and I know they're planning to make this a regular. It's going to be less constrained, more open. So, as you're probably all aware by now, there was a new article entitled "The Legend of Fenn's Gold," written by Julianne Grimm. Today in the Santa Fe Reporter. The Santa Fe Reporter is a long-lived tabloid in Santa Fe, covers the alternative news, et cetera, But Julie is actually the editor, and she has a very good reputation. She visited with Fenn, went through the process, but there was a couple of things that Fenn said when she asked him the question that almost everyone who visits with Fenn asks. She said, "How did you first tell the story that you would bury the treasure?" And she used the bury word. Fenn's response was, "I didn't bury the treasure. If you say that, I'm going to shoot you with a dull bullet." So he just wanted to make a point. Later on, she asks a second time, and he responds, "I didn't say I buried it, but I didn't say it's not buried." You know, that the older sense. I do want to read something that K-Pro posted on her vlog or her forum today. She wrote Fenn about the article. Fenn's response to the article after the fact was, quote, "The interview was last week, and it's a weekly paper. There were some misquotes and some made up quotes, but overall, I thought it was a good story. When she quoted me accurately, she didn't speak my language." So he generally, I'd say, liked it. So, Joel, you go first. Hidden, buried, or what? How am I going to find that treasure? In the
I've
end,
never gone out looking with a metal detector, and I don't plan to ever start.
Okay.
I don't believe that he buried it. I do believe that he hid it, and I believe he hid it in such a way or in such a place that it may have become more covered or buried after his having placed it there because of the nature of the type of place where he hid it.
Cynthia, hidden, buried, or what?
I agree with Joel. I don't think he buried it under dirt in the traditional sense of it being buried. I mean, he made the comment that it's not likely that if you were within 12 feet of it that you wouldn't find it. If it was buried under dirt to where you needed a metal detector, you could be standing on top of it and not know it. However, I agree with Joel. Wherever he hid it, I agree. In the 8 years or 9 years since, there's who's to say what weeds or leaves or whatever could have blown in there to now where it is covered and I don't know, maybe even dust or dirt blew in there, and now it's under dirt.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but I don't think it's buried. I don't think he took a shovel, dug a hole, put the box in, and covered it in the traditional sense of buried.
Agreed. I think we agree with that. Our sense is that it is hidden rather than intentionally buried. I don't think that any of us can predict how much impact nature has had on various forms of camouflage, but we're always looking for a niche in a rock that would require a flashlight to further investigate. So you guys in the room, tell us what you think. Hidden, buried, what are you going to find at the end of all this, and tell us what you think. Okay. So before I do our giveaway, Joel, tell people where they can find you. Thank you for joining us tonight, by the way, and we look forward to you joining us in future programs.
Absolutely.
And tell people where they can find you online.
Check me out on YouTube, Joel Lewicki, or on Facebook, The Thrill of the Chase, a Forrest Fenn community.
And Shelley Carney.
And I am on www.thesofterside.me, and I'll be live with Toby tomorrow at 2:30 in the afternoon, and I hope that you'll be there to check us out.
And Cynthia.
ChasingFennsTreasure.com.
And that's your blog.
Yes.
Okay. When are you going to get a YouTube channel?
When I find the treasure chest. Never.
And then just make one video and that's it.
That's it.
All right.
And be done.
So you can, of course, find me on a Gypsy's Kiss. Our next program is 1 p.m. tomorrow, where we do Forrest Fenn's book club on Thursdays. Tomorrow is chapter 16. Is that right? 16 or 17?
16, Stout-Hearted Men.
Stout-Hearted Men. So Shelley and I will be covering that with Shelley's preliminary analysis. So let me go ahead right now and give away this coin. The coin number is 862. You have to be a subscriber to our channel to win, and previous coin owners. If you're a previous prize winner that wasn't a coin, you can qualify. But if you've already won a coin from us, you can't go after this one, okay? And what I want you to do is post in the comments box below, and I'm going to show you the process and the clue, and then I'm going to hold it there for 10 seconds and then come back before we sign off for the evening. You ready? Here we go. Okay, so what you need to do is put in the comments below this program a link to a photograph that proves that you solved the problem, all right? So on behalf of our panel and our guest tonight, I want to thank you all for joining us. Remember that the flip side of the Fenn Treasure is hosting an after party after this program. So make sure you go by and visit them and mention that you had a good time here, okay? Thanks for joining us tonight. Joel, thank you for joining us. Cynthia, it's wonderful to see you again. Promise us that when you get back from your next trip, we'll have a chance to talk to you again and see what new things that you found. You tell wonderful stories, and I strongly recommend that you guys go visit her blog to see some of the images that she shot. And partner, I will see you tomorrow for a 1 o'clock show, and then our 2:30 program on the softer side. So we've got a busy day tomorrow, all right? Again, thank you in the chat room for your activity, for your healthy conversation. We like it that way. We hope you enjoy it too. We hope you enjoy this programming, and we hope to see you back not only tomorrow, but next week for our next panel session. Good night, everybody.